Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan Smith. I am the future DM of a campaign for Giradan. It's coming soon, but until then, I get really crafty and I really enjoy the meticulousness of modeling and being silly and using the energy that I get from having to think about how to create things to really fuel my campaign and to fuel the development of how I want to work on my campaign. So I have heard a lot of people say that you can do a lot more stuff with 3D printing. Of course you can. You can do tons of great things with 3D printing, especially when it comes to dungeon modeling. You can buy them professionally done. You can buy them professionally painted, resin kits, Dwarvenite from Dwarven Forge. Great stuff. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to spend. But here's what I've done over the years. I've been a fan of Dungeons & Dragons since 3rd edition came out when I was in high school. Yes, I did just age myself. But I've been a huge fan of that. And I stumbled onto Hirst Arts molds back then. And that was right around 2001 or 2002. Weren't many to choose from at that time. One of my favorites that he had done was the first Hirst Arts molds that I got were these guys, the brick wall there for the castle brick wall, and also the flagstone floor, whichever, or not flagstone. Yeah, actually it is flagstone floor. These guys, yeah, staple. It's a staple of the anyone that's a fan of Hirst Arts molds. You know, those are your common pieces to start working with. They're great stuff. And I started to learn the process of molding with plaster and painting and doing scenery and all that stuff. And I was really big into, I was getting into Warhammer back then too. I've always been fascinated with miniatures and painting miniatures and the kind of like meditation of everything surrounding D&D while you're playing a campaign or while you're working on a campaign. I also write in my free time, so of course I love to DM. It's just the way I am. So fast forward a bunch of years, I decided I wanted to get back into working with Hirst Arts molds. I just got the urge and thought Christmas was coming around, let's go crazy and order a bunch of molds, which I did. I ordered, I think in some total, just shy of 30 molds over a couple of months. I put in 2 big orders because when you buy bulk with them, you get a better deal. You get a slight wholesale price to it, and it makes the most sense. So what I ended up with was floor molds, both the circular towers, every style of floor, actually. The cavern molds, all kinds of fun stuff, and you know, things that were detail oriented. The tavern kit, the tavern mold with the spiral staircase, the booths, things like that. And after I got those, I worked 14 hours a day, and I got into a good rhythm of taking and casting all the molds. And I'd cast the molds in the morning once, pop them out. They were super quick and easy to pop out. Store them in these containers that I get from the dollar store. They're great. They do fill up quickly though, especially lately. We'll get to that. But in either case, so I was casting and I kept casting. I cast outer plaster. It's by far the most effective for me. I got a home workshop hardware store just 5 minutes from my house, and I can go there and I can get 25 pounds of plaster of Paris for $14. It's not bad. It's not bad, and you can cast a ton out of 25 pounds. And I buy a couple at a time so that I don't have to go back for the next month or whatever. So I did that for a couple of months, and I ended up with boxes and boxes and boxes of all my cast pieces. And coming around to finding the time in my schedule to put everything together and really sit down and glue everything down, you know, yeah, DM Skotty was right. Please check out his channel if you're into crafting at all. DM Skotty's right. They're really time consuming. They can be, for sure. So what I ended up doing was, after I had a huge, huge inventory up for my own pieces, I'd done more than likely 110, 120 casts of each mold. It does pile up quick. I figured, well, what should I do with them? Should I keep them? You know, I know we all get a little obsessive and we like to have libraries full of our stuff. In fact, right behind me is the replenishing of my Dungeons and Dragons book library. Yeah, it used to be a lot bigger than that, although that is Dungeon Magazine 1 through 20 in pristine shape. Got for a steal on eBay. Anyway, you know, time goes and things get sold, all that stuff. So that's what happened this time. I realized that I didn't need to keep the molds. I had all the parts and pieces, and Mr. Hirst, Bruce Hirst, is kind enough to give you an example of his entire process on his website. It's fantastic. And, you know, his thing is, yeah, don't do it for resale. Don't do that. That's mean. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to show you what you can do with Hirst Arts molds that I find is super effective for me and super effective for the game that's coming up in Giradan, and dungeon building and world building and just all the micro details, all the fun little stuff. You know, this is one of my favorite things, is just the little, you know, little ammo crate thingy. It's, you know, cool little pieces, and having them by the literal metric ton. You know, doors and those guys. But, ooh, here's the rub. Boop. Already done. So that's the real thing. So what I did was I got on one of the Facebook groups and just let them know that I had all these molds for sale, and they were never cast with resin because I am too lazy to deal with measuring out product. It's annoying to me. Resin is obnoxious to work with. It rips those molds apart. It makes them very, very, very ineffective, because if you're ripping the detail out of a rubber mold from, which these are all made with Smooth On, and the Smooth On line of mold material, I can't remember, Mono something, I'll get there. Anyway, so, you know, with me and resin, just resin gets expensive, it's silly, it's really nice to have all those highly detailed pieces and then gluing them together and still doing the annoying part of the process, which is, why am I putting these things together? Just an endless marathon of cast, put together, cast, put together, cast, put together, paint, wait, play. It's just not me. It's not how I roll. So what I have done, though, is I took all the molds that I did have of the single pieces and sold them. I sold them resale. I think I lost $7 a mold, each mold, and no big deal. That's not that bad. It's like a rental fee. Although the artist that is doing the main part of the process, which is casting these beautiful pieces, doing all this minute work to make these fantastic castle molds and all these other molds and new stuff that he just put out, like grass and things like that, just fun new tiles. I sold them off to somebody else, but I originally paid him. Yes, it's a lot of front money. It was a lot of front money. Thankfully, it was Christmas, and I had a bunch of people throw in and get me that entire collection, and then I flipped it. And what I did with that then was thought about, what should I do with all these pieces? What can I do to make a more modular style dungeon that I can put together during play without being obnoxious? I can paint really a little more quickly, a little more effectively, and just have it done. You know, just throw my 3 layers on and be done with it. You know, spray it black, base coat, highlight, dry brush. The end. Tile sets are done. Well, someone I knew was getting rid of their planked floor, their floor. And I used to be a floor guy. So of course, yeah, I can't think of the words right now. I'm just like that. So this is actually just a piece of flooring. That's it. Just a simple piece of flooring. It's the tongue and groove, easy, effective. You click it all together, you throw it in place, you're done. So they were getting rid of theirs, replacing it, and I kept all the boards that I was pulling up that weren't glued down, that weren't that were nice. They're supposed to be floating floors anyway. They're great. But anyway, this house had some that were glued down, and I ended up with a giant box of these floor planks, and they're right around 3 inches wide from without the tongue. So the actual working surface is 3 inches wide, and a full piece of it is 3 feet long, if I remember correctly. It's been a long day. Anyway, so I cut them down, and I just grabbed my circular saw, or not my arm saw, and just cut them down into pieces. This guy's 4 inches long, and right there. And what that means is that I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, I could just glue all the pieces that I have down, and they have a walkway. Average hallway is two squares wide. It's great. I like that. And P.S. I love 4th edition. Tactical combat is amazing. Tactical combat in D&D makes it so much more fun. So of course, yeah, I like grids. It's just how I am, and that's fine. So in either case, with this being a 3-inch deck, a 3-inch piece of workspace, what I could do was this. I thought, well, I'll take all of them and I'll make new tiles, and I'll take all the tiles and I'll put them in the center, and what I'll do is I'll just glue them in place. I'm not gonna do that here, but here. Oh, my washer's running. I'm sorry if you can hear it. But so anyway, take it, center it up, glue it in place, and then, oh cool, I got a floor, right? I got a walkway, and I can just butt them up against each other. I can set them in different ways. I could do it like this, where it's, you know, sideways and turns off, etc. And it's neat. It's just an easy way to have, oh cool, these are all done, and all that stuff. And all right, well, let's switch them back to this, and I'll show you exactly what I did recently. This is an idea I had that I thought was super fun, and I wanted to share with you guys for now, just because this is a constantly moving thing. What I did originally, which I wish I would have really thought through, is I had these glued down, and I had one glued and done, and I took 1.5 inches worth of wall, and I butted them up. Glued it in place. There you go. Okay. So you got your little hallway here, and that's where I was exactly before I was interrupted, and that's okay. But anyway, so I cast this in Mold Max 40 by Smooth On, or 30 actually. It's pink, and it's a great color pink. It's the one I can see. Anyway, so Mold Max is super easy to use. It's an A and B part mold solution, 1 part catalyst to 10 parts mold rubber. It's neat. Comes in the 2-thing kit, and this was the first mold that I had made personally. So I bought the sample kit off of eBay. Not eBay, Amazon. It's 2.2 pounds of Mold Magic with the catalyst, and I don't have a gram scale, so I just mixed it all up. And what I ended up with was the mold's currently in use, but something a lot like this. I built to make these molds. To make your own molds, you take your mold, you build a mold box around it. I've used old planks because I have so many of them, but I filled the guy in the middle there. I glued him right where he needs to be, and I just cast mold around him, and it worked out really well. And so here, let me do this for you guys while I have you right here on video. So here's the actual mold, and this was just an example piece. Yeah, check it out, it fell. So this was just an example piece, but anyway, so I cut the U out of the bottom of it because it is a U-shaped piece, and it gives it a little more flex for me to work with. But Mold Max 30 is super great. It's soft, easy to deal with, doesn't break as much, you don't have to fight it when it's in thick, when it's in a thick mold like this, because this guy is, this is 2 inches worth of mold rubber, and at higher durometers, which is the number at the end of mold max, is the durometer, it's the hardness, and it's on a urethane scale. Thanks for things that I know. So, that was my original cast, and he's here. See him? See? And guess what? That's all one piece. That was what I needed to really, really get refueled in crafting again. Was he's done. That's it. I don't have to sit and I don't have to sit and find time in my schedule to put all these together and map where I'm going with it, doing any of that weird stuff. And if you'll see, if you look in there, you can see I used half pieces to break up the grid lines a little bit so it's not so blasé. And the walls are on it. And there you go. That's 3 inches of dungeon walkway. And it's 15 minutes later, plaster. It's done. And the reason I swear by plaster is you can see from the video that I'm using what I stole from model railroading, which is benchwork tables. And you know, it's just 2x4 and big solid piece of plywood. It's gonna hold everything. It's gonna hold me on top of it and another person if that ever happens. And you know, it's sturdy and it's a game table. You walk into a game store, that's what they're playing on because it's cheap, easy, and effective furniture. So anyway, so there's a full solid piece. There you go, always done. Now, that's where I don't feel like I made a mistake with it. I do feel like I could have done different. And of course, this being a process, I tried something new later on. It didn't take me long to get mildly obsessed with making molds because it is kind of fun and super easy and super neat once you realize that, like, you don't need a gram scale, you don't need to go crazy with it, you don't need to buy a bunch of stuff to go so that you can do the process of it. It's just, all right, figure out how to, you know, figure out the length and width of your mold box, this guy, when you're molding a piece. You know, figure out what this is gonna be, guesstimate how much dead space is in there, make 3 or 4 of them, and then mix up the entire tub. You know, if you buy the sample kit for 30 bucks on Amazon, it's like $38, I think it's $36 shipped because it's not shipped, most times it's not shipped prime. Most times it's shipped directly from Smooth On, a Pennsylvania company. I am from Pennsylvania, by the way, so I'm slightly proud of that. I don't know why. But anyhow, so, you know, if you're gonna do molding, do a couple of things and make sure that you have a place for all your excess to run. If you throw like this guy, what I'll do here is instead of waiting and just making this giant mold next time, which I will do more of these at some point, instead of doing the giant mold, I'll make a dead space filler for the back end of that. So that I'll slip the dead space filler in to the top of the mold box to take up more space, so that I'm using less of the mold making material, because it can get pricey if you're wasteful with it, which I certainly am. I just do things that way. Well, you gotta learn, you know, it's a dark, irritating process. If you're not gonna make mistakes, then you're never gonna learn anything. And if you plan too much, you're never gonna do the thing you wanna do. What's the fun in that? So anyway, yeah, I was gonna say, I'd fill the dead space here. This is actually a corner piece, if you can tell there, yeah, sort of. So this guy's independent, this guy right here, he's independent. There's a, you know, doorway or whatever, and then the bottom end's a doorway. So that you can make hallways, you know? Hallways are super fun. They're kind of like the main part of the dungeon. I know what you're saying, though. You're saying, but what do you do about rooms and stuff? Well, I fixed up the process a little bit. I made more logical choices later on, which is, I want to make sure this is the one that I hate. Yeah, that's the good one. I don't like the tavern floor mold. It's a pain in the dick to work with. Pardon my language. Just kidding. But anyway, so later on down the road, I thought, well, I'm going to make a ton of molds because it's super fun to do, and I have all these parts and pieces here. So what I ended up doing is this. to make a more effective use of the mold material and to make the ability for variety. You know, that's the biggest key with this is if you have any group that you're doing dungeon crawls, you're doing a campaign, you're doing anything, find the most effective route to have reusable different pieces that you can swap up that are still just as effective and easy to use and just as effective and easy to pour and make. You know, these I make all my floors with the actual floor plank first, glue everything down, and then I make a mold of it. This is the cracked floor. I liked him a lot, and it's got space for walls out here because I can take another one like this one here. I can just take another one, butt it up, bam, room. There's a room. It's 6 inches wide, 7 inches long, whatever it is. I can add pieces. I've got so many 1-inch floor tiles. I actually made my own 1-inch floor tile mold that's huge and has all of them on one mold. Super easy to work with. I made him out of mold max 40, which don't need to go with such a high diameter, but there you go. And yeah, my wood's got the wavy gravy there, but anyway. So when I'm doing anything other than example work, of course I'm gonna sand everything down and get everything right. But when you do it that way, you know, I have a mold full of wall pieces now. So that, you know, it's just the wall here, just all that stuff together, and they're all the right size. They're everything's the right length. 1.5 inches tall at the most, which is 3 stacks. Stack 3 high. It's a great height so that you're not as flat as working with dungeon maps or anything like that. The drawn maps and stuff like that, they're so flat, and if you put a miniature on it, it just defeats the purpose of it. It's really cool. I like the Chess X stuff, and it's a really good way to get into it, but I think, you know, I like to take things as far as I can before I just flatline and get bored of them. And you know, that's how I did it. But this giant guy here, it's like, you know, he's got a bunch of bunch of different style floor tiles in there. And you know, I pour it, it's done. And if my goofy cat wants to knock one off the table and split it in half, it's plaster. It doesn't cost all that much. And you know, and here these guys are. Right here we got tavern floor, always bubbling, ruin that detail. So cracked floor. But the biggest thing is, if you're gonna work with dungeons and do fun stuff so that you can have big giant dungeon crawls, this is by far my personal preference. Later, buddy. You know, it's just the effectiveness of it. Because yesterday I sat and painted up. Yes, these guys, the floors here, they're all a single piece. They're ones that I did earlier that I thought, you know, they have the edge on all four sides, and I can throw, look, 1-inch dungeon tiles. I can butt 2 of them together, nice and easy to work with, you know. And me personally, this guy just did his demonstration, but yeah, you see he's just there, and there you go. And yeah, if you want precision and you want beautiful dungeons for some reason that have no noticeable faults or earth sinking around them or cracks or anything like that, 3D print them. Do it. That's just as cool. It's fascinating to watch people 3D print, but to me, I feel like, you know, it's just like my girlfriend said, like, yeah, they're dungeons. Why would they be perfect? You know, so that's my example dungeon. My little dead tiefling warlock. He's undead. He's cute. But, yeah, and, you know, it goes together. It's there. It's done. Great. There's another mold box. Yeah, and that's my mold station. So I'll go into more detail later on. I just wanted to do a weird intro video and kind of get this thought out of my head, because I like to do stuff like that. So if you have any questions or comments, throw them down in the comment section below. Do your thing. I'll link to Hirst Arts and Smooth On, I guess, so that you guys can find it. My biggest thing is Smooth On products, these wonderful giant molds that I made. I did take boards and I made giant mold boxes. You see this guy, he is, yeah, you can see how many single inch floor tiles are in there. Yeah, he's huge. And that's the 40, the Mold Max 40. I bought the giant bucket. They say it's a 10-pound bucket. That's the common usage of the phrase, but it's actually it's 12 pounds, I think, 12 or 13 pounds, something like that, with the catalyst, and mixed it all at once and just poured these gigantic molds because it's easier and it's more effective. I got all this stuff. That's all the wall pieces. There's some scatter pieces in there too, so that they're not just, the same old blase wall. No, I got like the teeth from the circular mold glued onto one of them, some of the dragon's teeth, all that kind of stuff. That's my mold for all my mini pieces, the dragon's feet, all that stuff for, just terrain additions, because nobody wants to walk into a bear dungeon and have to think about what it looks like. If you're gonna go this far for things, go the extra mile and do some detail work. Get the little treasure chest going. And anyway, but if you are gonna use the larger bucket, order direct from Smooth On. They do great on shipping. Always buy in bulk. It's cheaper, more effective if you're gonna go that big and you're not really sure what to do with it. If you don't want to go this way with it, you want to do smaller molds and stuff like that. Buy gram scale too. Get one free. Find any podcast that's doing the whatever postage.com thing or something that they send you a scale for free. Use that. Get some mixing cups off of Amazon so that you can weigh everything out and do everything the right way. This is just how to kind of pirate your way through life and do the thing. And this guy here, that's another U-shaped hallway. Different walls, different floor, just fun stuff. So, alright guys, we'll see you again soon.